Welcome back, everybody, to Constructive Uncoupling, the podcast devoted to amicable divorces. I'm Judy Weigel, your host and amicable divorce expert. Why? Because that's all I do, amicable divorces. And in the course of providing amicable divorce services in filing and in mediation, I got a call the other day. It was from somebody that I spoke to 2 years ago who wasn't ready to get divorced yet, but just gathering information. And that's really part of a lot of people's process. They will gather information, but they're really not ready to move forward, which is actually, I think, a very smart thing to do. This particular woman said, "Can my husband and I come and meet with you so that you can explain to us how to have an amicable divorce?" And I thought, okay, well, this is really great. Of course I would do that. But why don't I do that for the audience on Constructive Uncoupling? And that's what I want to do with you today. I want to talk about the steps in having an amicable divorce. But first, let's define what an amicable divorce is. An amicable divorce is a divorce in which both spouses are committed to working out the settlement in a way that benefits both of them and their children. But that doesn't mean that both spouses will agree on everything. It means that they won't lie to one another. That's huge, by the way, in terms of assets and debts. They won't hide assets and debts. And they will use the divorce to learn and grow. So that's really where the commitment has to be. The commitment has to be to deal with each other in a respectful way. But in order to get to this amicable place, the emotions, and this is the biggest thing now, the emotions that drove the marriage to divorce and the emotions that come up in order to deal with the idea of divorce have to be processed before the filing begins. And how is that done? Well, it's done through therapy, either individually or together. You can actually do couples therapy to prepare you for the divorce, not to stay together, but to literally prepare you for the divorce. You need a lot of quiet time, and you need an activity that forces you to focus on something outside of the divorce, like dancing, exercise classes, yachting, of course, if you have the income to yacht, cooking, comedy clubs, things that provide happiness, that will get you away from the idea of the divorce, that will calm you down. That's the whole point here. So that when you're ready to deal with the emotions of the marriage that are leading towards the divorce, you can do it better. You can do it in a more balanced way. Well, talking to others who have been through divorce is normal, and people like to do that a lot, but limit that. Your divorce is not their divorce. That is so important to know. Your divorce is not their divorce. And when they talk to you, they're going to talk to you through the prism of their divorce. And even though they may think, your friends and family, that they know you and they know why you're getting divorced, therefore they know why and how you should be dealing with your spouse, they really don't know all the little ins and outs of your marriage. They're not there when the conversations take place. They're not there for the innuendos, for the looks on your faces that might have disdain or caused an argument. They're not there for all of that. So only you can speak to the unique nature of your marriage. You will need help dealing with truths about yourself and truths about the marriage so that blame doesn't become dominant either in self-blame or spouse blame. What's done is done. You can't recreate the past. And I know we have to look at the past in order to deal with the present and the future, but blaming really gets in the way. I know it's the first step in acknowledgement, but then you have to move past it. acknowledging the realities of the relationship that either drove you to the things that broke up the marriage, like adultery, not having sex, using drugs. Whatever you did that perpetrated the divorce has to be analyzed, apologized for, and corrected. But what is ultimately important is that you face yourself and come to realizations that only you know about yourself and your marriage. When both you and your spouse have minimized the emotions ending the marriage, you can have an amicable divorce. Why do the emotions have to be dealt with before filing? Because when the filing begins, decisions have to be made mostly about money and also about custody if there are children. These are heavy-duty decisions. Money is heavy-duty because we need money to live. And the children are the unintended consequence of your anger, your blame, your unhappiness. And and the co-parenting plan. Oh, this is the other thing. The co-parenting plan is the thing that causes so many problems, because if there are very young children and mom was a stay-at-home mom, or mom spent most of the time with the children, mom's going to want to continue to spend most of the time with the children. And if you get attorneys involved and the court involved, it's not going to happen. The court wants both parents to spend as much time with the children as humanly possible, and you figure out how to do it. I know that's shocking for the parent who spent most of the time to hear. So if you're keeping this an out-of-court divorce, and you really do feel that at least for right now, the children need to be more with you than the other spouse, you need to at least offer a step-up plan. And you can't offer a step-up plan unless you're not emotional and you're thinking logically. It is way too hard to deal with raw emotions and the financial aspect and co-parenting aspect of the decisions. You'll make pretty bad decisions, and you'll regret them once the divorce is final and you're living with the decisions that you made. When I see people in mediations that are seriously emotional, I tend to either stop the mediation, take a break, speak to each person individually, and see if I can get them to calm down, because these decisions are way too important to be made when you're really, really emotional. And it's hard to get logic through. When we're emotional, we just can't use logic. The part of our brain that is our logical brain, if we use it anyway in the normal course of our day, it's shut down, at least for a while, until the emotions dissipate. I explain in the mediations that making quick decisions, because it's so painful to deal with divorce thinking, will give you post-divorce remorse. Best to take a little more time to get calm and focused before moving forward. So let me just take a second to talk about post-divorce remorse. It doesn't happen all the time, thank heavens. At least with me, it doesn't. But it can happen occasionally that you just sped through the decision-making, and now that the divorce is final, you can finally see your way clear to sit down and think about the decisions that you made, and they're being acted out in front of you anyway. And you'll want to go back and revise them. Well, you can. By the way, you can. Nothing is so in stone that you can't change it. But if you don't want to go to a hearing, there is a process by which both you and your spouse can sign off on a little document that we file that changes the decisions that you made in the settlement agreement. But you both have to be on board for it. So it's just so much better to calm down first, to process most of the heavy-duty emotions first, and then to file for divorce and start making those decisions that have to be made. So I put a little outline together. I just want to lay the groundwork for you now, but I put a little outline together that I want to go through so that you can have some steps to take to have an amicable divorce. So the first step is communication. It is all about communication. Making good decisions, being heard, listening to your spouse. It's all about the way we communicate. I often say to people, it's not exactly what you ask for, unless you're asking for the moon, and it's certainly not going to be accepted if you had to go to court. So you have to be reasonable in what you ask for, but it's how you ask for it. It's your tone of voice. It's if there's still blame in your voice, if you think you're being honest by referencing the horrible things your spouse did. Well, honey, when you were with that whore, or, honey, when you were high all the time and didn't come back till the middle of the night, I just want to. Okay, so you don't want to do that. Being nice and bringing up the ills of the behavior of your spouse, it's a very delicate balance, and you really can't do it. So communication. Commit to not arguing. The issues that caused the divorce aren't going away, but you have to move beyond those issues and make decisions going forward as opposed to justifying the past. If you or your spouse have mental health or emotional challenges, they aren't going to go away either. In fact, they'll be accentuated in this highly emotional experience of divorce. So set your level of expectations up realistically. Get professional help as soon as possible, and use divorce as a new beginning. With just that concept, use divorce as a new beginning, your communication will change on its own. When your spouse engages you in an adversarial discussion, stop talking, stop emailing, stop texting. It takes two people to argue. So if only one person is communicating adversely, then it's just that person communicating adversely. It's not an argument. And commit to listening. Boy, this is the hardest thing. I mean, just in our daily lives, when we're in a conversation where we feel out of control. Okay, so divorce makes us feel out of control. But there's many other situations where we feel out of control. It is so unbelievably hard to listen. But if you can force yourself to not speak, take a deep breath, and listen, everything will go so much better. Because when one person feels that they're being listened to, they will then listen back. And that's the place you want to get to. Both people listening to each other. Disregard all threatening comments like, "I'll take you for everything if you divorce me," or "I'm taking the children and moving to another state and you can't stop me." Okay, so these are incorrect statements from one spouse who doesn't understand the laws of the state surrounding speaking to another spouse in the same unknowing position to combat the initiator's fear and anger. So here's what happens. You're in fear mode. You feel completely out of control when you're in fear mode. And so one spouse will only know to threaten. "I'll take you for everything if you divorce me." Okay, so this is generally a spouse that doesn't have as much money as they should to live on their own. And this is fear talking, or this is embarrassment. It's something like that makes them feel that they're not going to regain control, and they don't know where to go with their fear. They simply don't know where to go. And taking the children out of the state and you can't stop me, please. That'll never happen unless you want to be the perpetrator of child abduction. And I'm thinking you don't want to do that. So whenever you hear your spouse saying things like this, or if you're the person saying this, please go to an attorney. Listen to the law, and then you'll know if you're the recipient of this information, the threats, you'll know not to be scared. You'll know that this can't happen and you have the law behind you. Or if you're the person making these statements, don't embarrass yourself. because they're never going to happen. No one's going to take somebody for everything, and you're not going to take the children out of the state by yourself unless you want to go to jail. So just stop. Do what I said before. Get help. Get help. Calm down, because this can be okay. You can use divorce as a new beginning. And get an attorney. So I had a client recently who 3 times said to me, his wife is saying she's going to take the kids out of the state and you can't stop her. And each and every time I said, read the summons. It clearly states what you can and cannot do with your children, and talk to an attorney. Go online, read the laws of your state. I mean, to just process this from somebody who has no idea what they're really talking about just to make you scared, don't be scared. It's not going to happen. And if it does, well, unfortunately, then you have to get the law involved. And don't discuss, under communication, don't discuss the divorce in front of the children, and don't discuss the divorce with every single person you meet. At a certain point, nobody wants to hear about it. They've either been through their own divorce and they can only give you so much comfort, or they're just not going to want to talk to you anymore, and you're going to want to alienate that person. But please don't talk about the divorce in front of your children. You do not owe your children, okay, this is something else I get, you do not owe your children an explanation of why they should hate the other parent. I mean, that is what happens when one person decides to discuss the divorce in front of their children. Initiating that conversation, it's generally because they want the children to think ill of the other parent. And that's just so not cool. That's so not child-centered. It's just not right. Your children are going to make up their own minds about both of you. It may not be good in either case, but listen, they're going to make up their own minds, and you just have to carry yourself with dignity and respect. And you have to avoid these conversations with your children. This is your divorce. This is not your children's divorce. This is not your friend's divorce. This is not your family's divorce. Although your divorce does affect friends and family, it's true, but it's still not their divorce to make decisions about. If you need help discussing the divorce, go to professionals like therapists, attorneys, a divorce coach, or a mediator, people who will answer questions or show you how to prioritize the issues you face for the decisions you're going to have to make. Believe it or not, some people say that their children should know why the divorce is taking place, which is code for, I want to badmouth the other spouse. This is the parents' divorce, not the children's. The children should be set up to love and respect both parents, even in light of the divorce, and even if the other spouse caused it. Next, self-awareness. Stop blaming the other spouse. It's not just one person's fault. Both people generally contributed in some degree to the fact that the marriage has to end. You have to unmarry. That's what a client of mine said the other day. She said, I don't like using the word divorce. I like to use the word unmarry. And I thought, that is so interesting. I need to talk about this. So I started using the word unmarry. I want to tell you another story. This is about being self-aware and not blaming the other spouse, even though your other spouse may be a piece of you know what. Let me tell you this story. I have a client who, in his words, has been in an unhealthy marriage for over 20 years. And why in his words? Because he told me story after story after story about how horribly his wife has treated him for over 20 years. Yet, he continues to portray himself as a victim and is in the storytelling phase of the divorce, a phase in which one spouse tells stories that are supposed to shock the listener into thinking of them as the victim and the other spouse as the villain. Yet, the real work should be to understand why the victim spouse accepted ill behavior from their spouse and didn't initiate the divorce on their own years ago. And the stories I heard from this one husband were horrible. Truly horrible. He was treated badly. But what I said to him was, your real work, and he has a therapist, thank heavens, your real work to come to a level of self-awareness, which is going to be your saving grace to move forward and have a better life, since you're still young enough to have a good life. You can be in your 60s and 70s and still be young enough to have a good life. But you have to understand why you stayed in the marriage. And that's really important. And I get a lot of people who come in the office and they want to tell stories about the other spouse and how horrible this person was, even though California is a no-fault divorce state. And the real work is, why did you accept this behavior? Because when you figure out why you accepted this behavior, that level of self-awareness is going to make divorce a new beginning. It's going to make divorce an awakening. And there are great things on the other side of divorce waiting for you. Third, personal care. Understand the need for quiet and alone time. This is so important leading up to the filing. This is how you deal with emotion. As soon as 2 residences can be established, do it. Even if it means getting a job to support yourself if you are the spouse that hasn't been working. But if you have to live in the same house, create either a schedule when you each have time alone to process your emotions, or carve out 2 spaces, if possible, in the house that becomes your refuge. And then you have to do other things. So yes, you need alone time. And living in the same house, especially in California, where it's so unbelievably expensive to live, a lot of people live in the same house just so that they can organize their finances, save money. And it's the worst possible situation, but if it has to happen, it has to happen. You can't do anything about it. But you have to recognize that personal care has to happen for both of you, and you absolutely need your alone time. So maybe schedule using a room, schedule not being in the house at the same time. Do something that gives you alone time in the house, or schedule alone time outside of the house. Exercise, walk, go to the movies, do activities. But you need personal care time, or, of course, my favorite, shopping and pastry. I will go to any lengths to find new pastry to eat. I love this activity more than anything. I know, we can't gain weight. So then I go walking for 2 hours just to take off the lbs. But whatever it takes to give you personal care, that's what you have to do. Number 4. Respect. You have to develop respect for yourself and your spouse. Please keep this in mind. We do our best at any given time, and sometimes our best just isn't good enough. We are here to learn. Earth is a classroom, and you have to look at your life as a learning project. Understand that there will be an emotional roller coaster that you will both buy a ticket to ride on, but the roller coaster will not run at the same time and at the same speed. So when one spouse needs more time to get some of their divorce paperwork done, be flexible. Allow more time, but with the understanding that there is a limit. How to establish that limit is subjective. It needs to make sense for both spouses, and it can't be a stall tactic, though, by one spouse who, for whatever reason, doesn't want the divorce to take place. So, okay, you have to respect each other. You have to get to a place of just respecting each other as human beings. You need to understand that we are imperfect beings and we all do things that are destructive. You also have to understand in this area of respect that this emotional roller coaster, we don't know when it's going to stop. It will slow down. It will speed up. We will both be on it. We will be on separate tracks. And we will get to the point of respect and acceptance at different times. And you just have to accept that that's what happens, because that's what happens. And if you can look at this emotional roller coaster with the understanding that it's necessary, that it's normal, you can respect each other's time. And that will really help both of you. But again, you actually do have to know when it's a stall tactic too, and then you have to gently say, honey, I'm moving forward. Take as much time as you need, I'm moving forward. And believe me, they'll speed up. They'll meet you. They generally do, or somehow you are going to move forward on your own. And a lawyer will tell you how to do that. Number 5, knowledge. Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how much knowledge is important. Seeking legal advice from an attorney is important. It's not being disloyal, it's being smart. People think that to have an amicable divorce, you cannot include attorneys. And that is about as far from the truth as it can be. You absolutely need to consult with attorneys so that you understand the lay of the legal land, so that when you go to make decisions or start initiating threats, the threats are pointless. And you need to know that when you're going outside of the law for decisions that you want to make, you need to know how far outside the law you're going and what the law supports and what it doesn't support if you end up in court. You need to know this. So it's being smart. It's not being disloyal. Both spouses need to hear from a reputable attorney, and I stress the word reputable, in regard to the law surrounding the specific decisions for your specific settlement. If you are speaking to an attorney who just wants to fight and punish your spouse, run screaming. This is not the way to an amicable divorce. Run screaming, because an amicable divorce is about respecting each other, knowing the law, and making good decisions that will benefit both of you. And when you see an attorney or listen to an attorney that just wants to fight, that wants to demonize your spouse, every word out of their mouth represents a dollar sign. These are the attorneys that want to make the money off of your pain. That will be their gain. Get out of that office and call me. And if you're in Los Angeles, I'll give you some really good attorneys' names who are not going to do that to you. Knowledge is power. Not the power to hurt your spouse, the power to not feel threatened, the power to relax and not react to threatening statements. And knowledge gives you the power to feel more in control. When we feel in control, we calm down, which we need to do in an amicable divorce. In any divorce, we need to calm down. And I have names of attorneys who will meet with both spouses. That's right. So precious few attorneys will meet with both spouses because they do feel it would be malpractice. I understand where they're coming from, because attorneys are there to represent and support one spouse over the other. But in an amicable divorce, both spouses should be treated equally. There are a couple attorneys in Los Angeles, if you are here, that will meet with both of you, because these attorneys don't litigate. These attorneys typically mediate or do collaborative law. And I think it's great for both spouses to be able to talk to the same attorney at the same time, because then it's just unfiltered law. It's not law kind of being manipulated to give you the best case scenario that could possibly happen, but probably won't happen. It's just straight law. And I think that's the best way to go to an attorney for an amicable divorce, if you can do it. So when this option is appropriate, it allows both spouses to hear the law together and to stay on the same page going forward. And then that piggybacks into number 6, control. Know that you are in charge of your decisions, leaving the divorce if you don't request a hearing or a trial. If you request a hearing or a trial, then the judge makes decisions. But if you want to maintain control over your decisions, which I think that if you can, you should, then you get legal advice, and then you go to somebody like a document preparation company, Divorce Resource, my company, of course, or many others that are good. And you go to mediation if you need help with your settlement agreement. Because if you go to a good mediator, that person will help you move towards decisions that are right for you. That mediator will listen hard to where there might be a compromise position that you can't see because you're invested in what you want to accomplish. Naturally, we all are. It's very hard when we're emotional or dealing in a divorce situation. It's very hard to look at the broad picture and look at what's best for both people. Some people can do it, which is fabulous, but a good mediator will help you get to that point. And they'll be creative. They will help create and brainstorm decisions that are unique to your situation. Lastly, number 7, behavior. Understanding the behavior that is normal and typical so that you can maintain an even keel in an amicable divorce. Understand that each spouse will seemingly behave a little differently than the other spouse is used to seeing them. This is natural because you're in the uncoupling process. And in the uncoupling process, you're focused on yourself, not on the other spouse. So I want to stop here a second. In a marriage, we're supposed to not only, get what we need out of the relationship, but we're also supposed to provide for the other spouse emotionally and in any way we can so that we have a fabulous relationship. But in the uncoupling process, when we're getting unmarried, we're thinking of ourselves. And so I will hear from clients, he or she is behaving differently. They're not really thinking about me. And so you're right. You're observing right. But then I always say back, well, in the uncoupling process, we are looking at ourselves. We are behaving differently because we're not in the same relationship that we were in the marriage. We're now in a different relationship. We're in the uncoupling relationship. And so we are going to behave differently. Don't get offended. It's normal, it's typical, and it's going to happen to you if it hasn't happened already. Everyone is in flight mode and invested in self-preservation. They can't think of you, they can only think of themselves at certain points in time. But eventually, they will get into a calmer state of mind and come to the decision-making process with a better ability to hear you and make decisions that are mutually beneficial. And that really does happen. So you kind of have to weather the storm of, gosh, he or she isn't really thinking about me. They're just thinking more about themselves. And you can maybe gently say, well, I understand that you need to look out for yourself. I definitely understand that because I'm trying to look out for myself too. But if you could please think of making this decision in another way, and then present that other way. Is this something that you would be open to considering? You have to talk like that. And then you can kind of both get to the point where, okay, if you say that if I do this, it's better for you, would you be open to doing this because it's better for me? I mean, that's the way you have to do the conversation. That's the way you have to look at the changing behavior. And then just to know it's normal will calm you down. So those are the 7 steps in having an amicable divorce: communication, self-awareness, personal care, respect, knowledge, control, and behavior. If you can get to these places in a mutually beneficial way, you can have an amicable divorce. So I hope this helped. I talk about this a lot when I'm working with my clients, so I'd love to hear from you. Did you find this to be beneficial to you? You can reach me, Judy Weigel, your amicable divorce expert, at Judy, Judy, at constructiveuncoupling.com, Judy at constructiveuncoupling.com. Please subscribe to the podcast. Please have your friends subscribe. There's so much good information on all of these episodes that you will find exponentially beneficial. Thank you so much. You've been listening to Constructive Uncoupling, and I look forward to our next